Hey, welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula. I know it's Tuesday, and you're all out there going, what's going on? Why you got to go show on Tuesday? Well, so much stuff has happened that we wanted to have another extra show so we could talk about things that we didn't get to over the last couple of days. And one of those things we didn't get to, and it was obviously, I guess, breaking news by, with the new information that's come out. I mean, it was a little sad what we saw in independent media. I expected it from the mainstream media, the pushback about Ukraine, of them calling it an invasion by Russia. But we know that's not true. And since we had the extra day, we thought we'd bring on our special guest. He's been a guest on this show more than any other person. I call him our senior analyst when it comes to Russian affairs and in the region of the Donbass. Mark Sleboda is here. How you doing, Mark?
Pasta, thanks for having me. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be on the conversation couch.
I love it. It never gets old, man.
I'm not that senior. I mean,
no, you're a senior analyst for us.
A little gray in the period.
Anyways, Mark, let's jump right into this. I don't want to keep you long. I know it's late over where you're at. But right off the bat, before we even get started, because like I told you, when I jumped online yesterday after we did our show, just seeing so many people, people even on the left here in America in independent media news, like I said, I expected from the mainstream media to, demonize Putin and say this was an invasion. But I saw this from a lot of independent media outlets out there. I just want you to reaffirm, or maybe not, maybe it's not, maybe I'm just wrong, but everything that happened yesterday with Putin recognizing the Donbass region as an independent state, everything that happens when it came to the U.S. stems from what happened in 2014 on the Maidan. Yes or no, true or false?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Ukraine would be a whole country today. Crimea would still be part of Ukraine. Both Donbass republics would still be part of Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine would still have more or less normal relations and heavy economic relations, if not for the U.S.-backed putsch, which overthrew the government in Ukraine in 2014. And they like to call that whole thing a revolution of dignity. Right away, you can tell that is a propagandized buzzword, because some people get dignity and other people don't get dignity. But it was quite clear at the time. Polls were published. Polls were taken and published in the pro-Maidan American-run, at the time, Kiev Post newspaper in English. You can read them online still. Majority of the Ukrainian population was opposed to the Maidan, right? It was a slim majority, right? Nearly half the country supported it, but just over that, half the country opposed it. And that is why a civil conflict broke out in Ukraine after that. And yes, Russia supported the people of East Ukraine that did not support the overthrow of the government that they had overwhelmingly elected. And yes, the U.S. supported the forces that seized power in Kiev. And that brought us through a frozen conflict, through Minsk Accords that were supposed to be implemented to politically reconcile Kiev with the east of the country. And they were never implemented. Kiev has refused to implement them. In fact, recently, the head of the Kiev regime Security and Defense Council said that to implement the Minsk Accords would mean the destruction of Ukraine. And by Ukraine, he means the regime, that seized power in Kiev. And that is quite simply because the ultra-nationalists, the far-right brown shirts that are so instrumental, they were the vanguard of the Maidan. They are integrated into the military, the police, the security services, the mainstream political parties of the Maidan. They would rebel again. There would be another Maidan against, the government that fulfilled it, because it would be viewed as capitulation to Russia. And the whole house of cards of that regime would fall apart if its own far right fell on it, turned on it. Yeah. That's why they never implemented it. That's why the U.S. and never pushed them on it. That's why Germany and France, which were supposed to be guarantors along with Russia, refused to push Kiev on it. And after 7 years of not fulfilling it, and the frozen conflict continuing, and the people of East Ukraine having to live on a daily basis under artillery shelling, mortar fire, grenades, sniper fire, Putin said, all diplomatic options are exhausted, back to the military option. By that, it's kind of a trap military option. He simply recognized Donetsk and Lugansk as independent republics and extended the shield of Russian military protection over them.
Before we get to that, though, but really quickly, Mark, I do want you to unpack, because the narrative in the mainstream media and on the interwebs is that Putin was aggressive as can be, and the Donbass regions were the ones who were the agitators and firing into Western Ukraine. Can you just, before we get into what exactly happened yesterday, can you describe life in the Donbass for the last 7 years since that government overturned? And has Putin done everything up until this point to try to mend things? Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Putin has done things to try to mend things without, simply accepting what happened in Kiev in 2014. Of course, if he just accepted that and told the people of East Ukraine, just lay down, accept that your language, your culture is going to be repressed and denied to you, that your political voices are not going to be heard, that your political parties will be banned and persecuted, then of course there would be a type of peace, right? It's the peace of the Odessa massacre, if you remember what happened in May of that year. But there wouldn't be, an international aspect of it. But Russia is not going to do that to the people of East Ukraine, and that would mean Ukraine. Well, it was happening already. Ukraine was undergoing de facto NATOization, i.e., they weren't being offered yet a formal membership action package, but they were on the ground. Being brought into NATO, right? The UK was announcing the building of military bases, of naval bases in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov in Ukraine. Some 10,000 quote unquote trainers and advisors, NATO trainer and advisors were on the ground. Hundreds of tons of weapons and ammunition have poured into the country.
Let's put the map up for a while Mark's talking about these areas, ladies and gentlemen. Take a look at what he's talking about, because I think geographically where Ukraine is located, you can see it right here on the map, the Sea of Azov and Crimea and whatnot. So please continue, but I wanted people to see the map you had talked about.
So Russia viewed the de facto NATOization of Ukraine as a security threat to them. And, the rhetoric out of Western governments is that Ukraine wants to join NATO. And by Ukraine, they mean the putsch that they helped seize power in 2014. Russia's position, and this was, clarified by Lavrov just in the last 48 hours, but that Russia does not consider that Ukraine right now, Ukraine does, but the regime in Kiev does not have sovereignty over Ukraine. They are not a legitimate government. They seized power and have repressed the political voices, the lives of the people of East Ukraine ever since. And until a political reconciliation by the Minsk Accords or something similar happened, then they don't. Russia does not recognize them as having sovereignty. That is why they, have finally, at the last resort, have recognized Lugansk and Donetsk as independent republics, and that is kind of a trap. That is a trap set and baited. One, if the Kiev regime military forces continue to shell Donbass, then or take other type of military action, then that will be an attack on a new treaty ally of Russia, and Russia will respond. And they will respond severely. There's also the issue of what are the borders of the new republics.
Yes.
Because the area currently controlled by the Donbass republics is only 1/3 of the total administrative regions of Donetsk and Lugansk. It is the most populous part of it, but it's only 1/3. 2/3 of them is actually in the hands of the Kiev regime. And when the independence of these republics is recognized, both the Duma and Putin spoke to it, the borders that they recognize as these independent republics is the borders that they say they have. And they say that their borders are the entire administrative regions of Donetsk and Lugansk, not just the third that they currently hold. So they have ordered the US-backed Kiev regime military forces basically to get out of our country, or what we say is our country now. And of course, Kiev refuses. They continue to refuse. Conflict starts, and Russia automatically gets pulled in. That is the trap set and bait. And Russia does have its military poised all around the country, in Belarus, in naval forces in the south, military forces, on the border with Donbass in the east. And in the last, few hours before we go to air, the president of Russia, Putin, requested from the Russian Federation Council, which is the equivalent of the U.S. Senate, for permission to use military forces abroad.
I saw that.
He received it, and now he will send military forces into Donbass to protect and to help enforce their borders. And basically, Kiev has the option of withdrawing from the administrative regions of Donetsk and Lugansk and ceasing all shelling and other activity. And if they don't, then it's war. I mean, it's that simple. Then there will be a full military intervention. I
think a lot of people, by the way, I just want to stop you real quick, because I think a lot of people don't realize that even though these two regions have declared their independence and it's been recognized by Russia, you're saying 2/3 of it is still held by the Kiev-controlled government right now. So this situation is not even close to being resolved right yet.
Oh, no.
A lot of stuff on the table. Yeah.
This is just the end of the beginning.
The end of the beginning. Got it. Got
it. You can, according to the regime in Kiev and its backers in the U.S., they have never, ever fired on the Donbass. They've never done anything. And they continue with the rhetoric like they have since 2014, that it's just those crazy pro-Russians killing themselves.
Bombing their own kindergartens, right?
Oh,
I saw a kindergarten. They did it to
bombing their own troops, yes.
Yeah.
And, of course, that's ridiculous. Now, there is an OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation, monitoring mission that is supposed to enforce a demilitarized zone between the Kiev regime and the Donbass and monitor violations of that. Now, to be fair, the OSCE is pretty much institutionally captured by the U.S. and its allies because they are the majority of the members. Russia and Belarus are also members, but they're outnumbered. So, but there is a modicum of procedure involved, and they record explosions and violations. And if you take a look at their maps over the weekend, up till today, you can see quite clearly that they have marked where explosions took place. And it is irrefutable that the vast majority of what they recorded is occurring in the territory controlled by the DNR and LNR. Okay. So unless they are turning their own artillery guns and somehow firing directly on their own territory, then and that is not being noticed by the monitors, then you have no reason to accept that Kiev is firing on them. Now, there is exchange back and forth. That is normal for this type of frozen conflict, but it has vastly increased in the last week, and it appears that the majority of the bombings have occurred in Donetsk and Lugansk republic's territory.
Yeah.
So you really can't argue with that because there's no evidence to the contrary.
Mark, wasn't there a video in the beginning of Zelensky's term when he went to the front lines and tried to tell some of the Western-backed militias to turn and stop firing on the Donbass region? I mean, isn't there like video proof of that? I mean, how can they keep on lying about this? Because I think a lot of people, especially when the mainstream media in the West simply states that it's the Donbass region under Putin's goons who are doing all the firing on the Western Ukrainians, it gets lost in the shuffle what's really going on there.
It actually is reported quite often. There have been I saw an interview with a BBC reporter when he was in the trenches on the Ukrainian side. It was a journalist, and she was asking one of the Kiev regime military forces, I understand, according to the Minsk Accords, you're not supposed to have any heavy weapons here. You don't have any heavy weapons, right? And he just looked at her and he says, the enemy doesn't need to know what we have, and you don't need to know what we have, but I'll just say we have everything. Right? Yeah. And I mean, they've filmed them firing into Donbass. It's been on air in the Western press, and there was a gushing report in the British press just over a week ago about a female Kiev regime sniper that she says she's killed like 100 people in the Donbass. And then you do the slightest look into her history, and you see that she's a member of the right sector. She's a literal neo-Nazi. And that she's posted all kinds of racist, not even just directed at ethnic Russians and Slovak East Ukrainians, but against blacks and everything else in general. But this has long been this far right element that is so integrated. I mean, the chief of Ukraine, of the Kiev regime's military, took the head of the right sector, Dmitry Yarosh, as an advisor, as his military advisor. And Yarosh is constantly talking about the need to conduct attacks behind the lines in Russia, much less, in the Donbass. The idea that they are not actively probing, trying, always keeping military pressure on Donbass, it is denialism. Putin has called it genocide.
Yeah.
I have refrained from calling it genocide simply out of an over academic assessment of that term. Now, to refresh your memory, the US claimed genocide against Gaddafi and even created this fiction about rape pills and so on to justify their overthrow of his government in 2011.
Well, things are going pretty well over there now, Mark. That was not so bad.
Yeah, terrorist haven, slaves being sold and everything. All right, it's clear that there wasn't a genocide. They used that rhetoric, right?
Yeah.
According to the U.S., China putting Uyghurs, Muslim West China, from West China, who have adopted the Saudi extremist Muslim ideology of Wahhabism into re-education centers. That is genocide, right? But shelling the people of East Ukraine for not accepting the government that they helped foist in Kiev, that is not genocide. All right.
Yeah.
If you want to call it instead, I would say ethno-political cleansing. I mean, Zelensky himself has said, if you feel yourself to be Russian, leave, get out of Ukraine.
Yeah.
The problem with that, of course, is 20% of the population of Ukraine is ethnic Russian.
Yeah.
And most of East Ukraine says, well, they're just our brothers, right? They're our fraternal brothers. In fact, Zelensky himself said that Russians and Ukrainians are essentially one people before he took office when he was running for campaign. So, I mean, however much, the political zeitgeist may be to, portray the opposite, the majority of Ukrainians and Russians feel that they are one people. Now, West Ukrainians, no.
I want to stop you. I think it's important to point out over here too, as well, what you're saying too, as well, because a lot of people don't realize this. They think the Azov Battalion are neo-Nazis who really hate Jews, and I would argue that from what I've seen in their history is that they hate Russians more.
Yeah. I mean, this is the red herring argument that is always used is, Ukraine can't have neo-Nazis because their president is of Jewish descent. Okay, well, first of all, that obliviates the whole history of Jews who collaborated with Nazi Germany in the extermination of their own people, and the fact that Zelensky's own oligarch patron Kolomoisky was one of the biggest funders of these far-right battalions from the beginning of the Maidan on forward. But the truth of the matter is that Zelensky has become essentially a political hostage of the regime he inherited. Maybe he even believes it, in that type of ultranationalism himself now. But this is the devil's bargain that was always made. As long as this Ukrainian ultranationalist, far-right, Banderite fascists, whatever you want to call them, as long as the principal objects of their hate and violence was directed at ethnic Russians, Slovak East Ukrainians, right, nostalgics for the Soviet Union who, work in the factories of East Ukraine and so on, and leftists, then it's kosher. They're kosher. In fact, a former Obama official who was principal in formulating Obama's Ukraine policy, i.e. supporting the overthrow of the government, Evelyn Farkas, recently gave an interview to the Daily Beast. This was just a little over a month ago.
Yeah.
And she was asked about this, and she admitted, okay, well, maybe they're far right. Maybe they're worship Nazi collaborators openly and so on. But right now, the government, Ukraine, is in an existential fight for its life. And the ideology of these people does not matter. That is what she said. And you can read that for yourself.
In the Daily Beast,
And, hey, the ideology of, jihadists in Syria, Al-Qaeda and those allied with ISIS and ISIS before they were against them, their ideology doesn't matter. Right-wing death squads in Central and South America, their ideology doesn't matter. Literal neo-Nazis integrated in the military, the police, the security services, the political parties in Ukraine don't matter. Why? Because they serve U.S. geopolitical interests.
Mark,
flat out. That's simple.
Mark, listen, I don't want to make this conversation about what I'm about to ask you. I would like to talk about it another time. But isn't there something to say that, and I tell a lot of people this after coming back from Central and South America, the right in America is different than the right in Central America, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're talking about actual death squads. When we're talking about in the Ukraine, we're talking about actual neo-Nazis. It's a little bit different than, a guy with a Make America Great Again hat on, drinking Meisterbrow on his porch that has zero power and just wants you to stay off his grass. I mean, the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want people to understand when you say right in, Ukraine, what it means to be with the neo-Nazis, that kind of thing. Is there something to be said about that?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And I think it speaks to the really pettiness of American domestic partisan politics, right? Everyone who doesn't agree with you in the U.S. is a fascist, right? Is a Nazi, right? I mean, the Republican base right now that regards COVID restrictions, those imposing those restrictions, asking them to wear a mask, they're Nazis, right? On the other side, you have the Democrats saying anyone from the South, everyone who supports Trump, voted for Trump, is a Nazi, right? Of course, that is ridiculous. That is the absolute downward spiral to the cesspool of political discourse. But there are literal neo-Nazis in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Armed neo-Nazis who kill people, who have burned people alive in a trade union building, have committed all kinds of atrocities. And you don't have to believe me on that. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have even grudgingly reported on that. Okay. Yeah. And they always just say, oh, then they're a minority. If they're a minority, why are they integrated all throughout? Why are they teaching kids in Ukraine in schools to use weapons, little schoolgirls? Why do they compose the entirety of Ukraine's National Guard? Why is the number 2 in Poroshenko's party, Andrei Parubi, a literal neo-Nazi? Why did the Jewish descent president of Ukraine put a Hero of Ukraine medal on a right sector fighter, right? Because they're integrated through the regime. They helped it seize power. They've helped it maintain power, and they're absolutely necessary to the functioning of it. The entire, pro-Western revolution has become hostage to them because they were what fought them to power and kept them there in the first place. It was the devil's deal between pro-Western liberals and the Ukrainian far right, because it was assessed that together, what they had in common is they both hated Russia and the people of East Ukraine who didn't hate Russia.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you a question while we're here. Let me piggyback off that. And thank you so much. I mean, I didn't go to journalist school, but I know the one rule is, hey, man, don't ever ask a question you're not going to get the right answer to that you don't want to hear. So when I asked that question, I held my breath. But, I mean, I think people should know, you used to be a Democrat, but you consider yourself to be a hardcore leftist of sorts, right? I don't want to say hardcore leftist, but I would always say Fiorella and Mark are left of me. You know what I'm saying? And you would still say that, correct?
I would say I'm left-ish. I would say I'm statist.
Okay. Okay. But thank you for clarifying that, because right now we have some people demonizing the truckers movement as just crazy far-right nut jobs, and they want to make the same comparison to the right-wingers they have in Central America, which are actual, death murder squads, to, like I said, that guy with a Make America Great a hat again on. But let me
to be fair, I think the truckers movement are crazy right-wing nut jobs too, but they're not Nazis. Because there are literal Nazis in the world. And when you use that kind of word, that someone that you politically disagree with, like on a subject like epidemic restrictions, then that really diminishes what the word actually mean when it matters.
Yeah. Well, I would disagree with you with crazy right-wing nut job there by far. We haven't, I don't want to get into that. We can argue about that another time and stuff. But let's stick to this.
I'm your foreign policy expert.
Exactly. I'll tell you what goes on and can't. But anyways, no, just kidding. A lot of people think Putin is this crazy autocrat, this thug, this dictator of sorts, an ex-KGB agent. But he was actually a lawyer within the KGB. And you had just talked about the Russian Senate giving approval for Putin to go in there military-wise. I think a lot of that shocked a lot of people who don't pay attention or just listen to the mainstream media in the West, because they were like, Putin has to get permission from the Senate. Can you give a little insight to the actual process that took place and what Putin had to do as far as getting permission from a government in Russia that actually acts as a government?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably most shocking to Americans, simply because their own president doesn't have to do that, because Congress has long abrogated its own given powers to declare war and not to declare war, right? To send troops abroad to the president. So maybe that's why it's shocking to them. But, Russia does, its interpretation of international law, and for instance, whether the U.S. has, followed it or not, or, when it has broken it and under what precedent. Russia, does have a very strict adherence to its own interpretation of international law. Again, obviously different from the U.S., which invaded Iraq and Syria and Libya and Afghanistan and so on, Serbia. But they are, I wouldn't say that they follow it 100%, but they try to follow it to the letter as much as they reasonably can. Obviously when that comes into conflict with a hyperpower like the United States, which violates international law left and right, doesn't feel bound by it at all, and they're forced to respond in certain situations. They have to violate it in turn. But I think overall they try to follow it more than the United States, I would argue, without claiming that they're some type of saints.
Did this move to you? I mean, obviously, we understand American hegemony, right? We understand the foreign policy. And the last question before I get out of here is going to be what can we expect from these war hawks like the Blinkens and the Ned Prices, the Sullivans, your girl Victoria Nuland. But before you answer that question, what do you think about the move that Putin just pulled here? Because when I'm analyzing this move, and obviously there's still a lot to be done. 2/3 of the regions are still occupied by the Kiev forces, and we have to see how that unfolds. But what do you think about this move of him pulling this and just recognizing the independence? Because I thought it was not what the Americans thought would happen. And I really think, when I'm analyzing it, it's a pretty good move, no?
I think it's a phased process. I think it is a layered process according to their own logic of what legality is involved with this or not. They are creating the legal circumstances and setting the trap where they believe they are in the right, legalistically speaking in this. I think that the way things stand, if all that would transpire and would just end in that is Russia recognizes Donetsk and Lugansk, and they are now independent countries, and Kiev never gets them back. That is actually a victory for Kiev. They do not want Donbass back.
Yeah.
Why? What? That doesn't make any sense, Mark.
No, the financial aspect, right? Like to carry them. No,
the political aspect. What is Zelensky's approval rating right now is like 23%,
yes.
Low 20s, right? There is a very fragile political balance in Kiev, and this, Maidan regime is flopping. The opposition bloc of East Ukrainians not in Donbass, or not in DNR and LNR, they at the beginning of last year, they had become the most popular, according to some polls, had already become the most popular political party in the country. And Zelensky responded by charging their leader, Viktor Medvedchuk, as a traitor, trying him with treason, and shutting down 6 television stations and a whole host of newspapers, online media projects, outlets, everything that basically represented the Eastern Ukrainian point of view, he banned in the country. Then he turned around and went after Poroshenko on his other side and charged him with the same treason charges. That kind of ended, any type of potential political opposition to him in Ukraine.
Yeah, I guess also with the move, fewer ethnic Russian voters in there. That's up with the Kiev style kind of.
Yes. Yes. If Donbass was to be returned to Ukraine, there would be some 6 million anti-Maidan, quote, nominally pro-Russian, quote unquote, voters that they would have to reintegrate into the country, and that would upset the fragile balance. They don't want those people back. They don't share the vision of Ukraine that this regime in Kiev does. They are troublesome, but they can't just give it up.
Yeah.
However, if Putin takes it away from them and they make a show of it, then everything is good. And if everything stopped there, that would be a win-win. Russia would lose influence in Ukraine because those 6 million voters would be gone permanently. And all of Russia's stated security guarantees that they were demanding about Ukraine not joining NATO, that would be totally out the window, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no longer any question of the Minsk Accords being fulfilled. So there could be no veto by the Donbass within Ukraine of joining any foreign alliance and so on. So right now, this is a win situation for Kiev if it doesn't go any further.
Yeah.
But by extending their protection over this setting this boundary issue, Russia is making sure that the regime in Kiev has to militarily respond in some way that will allow Russia to then intervene further. And personally, no one knows exactly, what the Russian government, what Putin is going to decide. I don't even know if he does for sure yet. I think, he always hopes against hope for some kind of diplomatic outcome. But I think everyone knows that's not going to happen at this point. But I don't think that Russia gets its security guarantees, what it wants, right? NATO doesn't expand into Ukraine. There is no de facto NATOization. No opportunity for the U.S. to put missile systems in Ukraine close to Russia's borders, unless the regime in Kiev falls. Yeah. Basically, Russia regime changing the regime change that the U.S. put in Ukraine.
Yeah, yeah. It almost feels like it's if the Donbass goes independent and continues to go independent, which has just been recognized by Russia, that it's almost like a natural redistricting for the Kiev government.
It's a domino effect. That will theoretically end in that whole regime collapsing like a house of cards, one way or the other.
Well, now that we have the 2/3 still left of the Donbass region, which is still held by Kiev forces, we have that drama to play out. But with the Donbass region going independent and Crimea being part of Russia, it seems like geopolitically, maybe the Azov Sea, is the area where we're going to see a lot of hot spots and things heat up between Western Ukraine and those independent states in Russia. Is that where Victoria Nuland will now?
No, I mean, the Sea of Azov is not a military area. For one, Russia controls all access to it. In fact, there was actually a treaty that is still in force between Ukraine and Russia that cedes Russia complete control of it because it is a very shallow sea, right? Okay. In places, it's only like less than 20 feet deep, right? You can't have any type of serious naval engagements.
Got it.
It's flat bottom boats in some parts and things. That's why, it's always a big joke when you talk about putting, Western military ships in the Sea of Azov. It simply could physically not even happen.
I understand.
But the Black Sea, right? That is still the potential for some flashpoints there. Yeah. But when the government was overthrown in 2014, the majority of the Ukrainian military of the Navy was in Crimea, just not in Sevastopol. When the government was overthrown, don't trust me, trust U.S. state media, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, which did a report on that. 75% of the Ukrainian Navy personnel either defected or just quit and refused to follow orders from the new regime in Kiev. Yeah. On top of that, they took 75% of Ukraine's Navy along with them.
Actual boats?
Actual boats. In fact, the head of Ukraine's Navy defected to Russia. Why? Because they didn't agree with the change in government in Kiev. So there's not a whole lot of potential for naval conflict simply because the Kiev regime currently doesn't really have much naval assets. I mean,
they got billions in aid coming from the West. Maybe we'll throw some aquatic gear to them. Who knows? We got some old aircraft.
In 20 years, they might be able to build some shipyards if the U.S. kept delivering them hundreds of billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. It's like that's all they got is weapons now, and they got nothing else. It seems like they've been provided by the West. It's a sad state of affairs.
Plenty of ammo.
Yeah, plenty of ammo. Nowhere to shoot it. Mark, thank you so much. Hopefully we can see more of you. Are you still doing Sputnik stuff? What are you doing?
I just did 4 Sputnik radio interviews today before you. So
nice.
Yeah, if I know Sputnik gets dialed down by Google down to nothing, but if you go to Sputnik and just go to the daily radio interviews, or even just search my name, every radio interview I do will pop up, and 90% of them are on Ukraine and Russia. So,
well, you are the man. So you say it? No, it wasn't an invasion by Putin. So
that is entirely your perspective. If you believe that the government in Kiev is legitimate and represents all Ukrainians, you can call it an invasion if you want. I know when the U.S. invades other countries, they call it an intervention. If you look at it another perspective, Russia is there to protect the people of East Ukraine against the U.S.-backed regime that has been killing them for 8 long years.
Yeah.
And they recognize them as independent now. So, that is all, dependent on your geopolitical loyalties and your interpretation of what happened in Ukraine in 2014 and since.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem, is when you start talking to people about questioning why they think it's an invasion, they don't even know what happened in 2014. And we opened up the show with you stating
most Western media reports start with Russia annexing Crimea.
Crimea, exactly.
Yeah, right. Before, and completely forget to mention that less than 2 months earlier, the government in Kiev was overthrown with open U.S. support and no small degree of orchestration.
Mark, get on out of here. It's great seeing you. Get some rest. Thank you so much, everybody. That's Convo Couch's senior analyst on Russia, Crimea, Ukraine, and Donbass events. But he's not a senior. Mark Sleboda.
Cheers, guys.
Love you, brother. Man, oh, man. Fam, you're here. How about that? Mark Sleboda setting the record straight. What do you think?
He's absolutely right, 100%. And he's he's specifically in that area. And he knows what he's talking about. And everything you guys talked about just now is everything we've been saying, everything we've been trying to get across to a lot of these people. So, yeah. Well, I thought that was a great discussion. We can argue with him about the other stuff, though.
He even said, he goes, you have me on here for
but they're not Nazis.
They're not Nazis. Crazy what? But the whole thing is, I don't know if you heard me ask him. I'm like, you're like Fiorella. You're like hardcore left. And he's like, he didn't deny it, but he kind of pivoted to something else. But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's okay. I mean, still, I think we've created a video over there, and I'm gonna collect all our Ukraine videos with Mark. This is now the 3rd one we've done, and put them out back into the interwebs so people can read and share them. Nobody even knows what happened in 2014. We opened up the show, fam. I asked them, I said, everything that's happening today, is it not a byproduct or a result of what happened in 2014? He said 1,000%. Everything we're seeing today is a chain reaction, a domino effect of what happened when the West helped overthrow the Western Ukrainian parliament, to help them overthrow the government and take control on the Maidan. That is why we are where we're at today, period.
Right. That's why it really, really irritated me to no end when I saw the leftist independent media just completely get this so wrong. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? These people that have not paid attention, Pasta, we've been talking about this for a while, literally. And so it's really irritating seeing all these people like Kyle Kulinski and all these people from TYT, it's expected. But even people just people on the internet, just going along with this narrative. And I'm like, it's like with COVID and with elections, you don't know what you're fucking talking about. And you look like a complete idiot. The, whoever runs the Gravel Institute.
Yeah.
The Vanguard.
Let's put that up.
All these people.
Slide 16. Let's do it.
Well,
let's talk about
start.
it. Yeah. Really to tell the truth that, we had Mark on first so that we can get the scoop of what's going on. And then we can respond to some of these people out there because, fam, we were pissed at people on Friday, which we're going to talk about, the Marianne Williamson, the Seize the House thing. We're going to get your opinions and take on that. Then on Sunday, we were pissed again with people kind of like smearing the whole trucker situation and everything there. You know what I'm saying? But the people we were pissed off on Monday after we ended the show, I really didn't expect them to be there on this topic. It was really confusing. It was really surprising. It was really like, come on, man. And I got some of your tweets here because you so eloquently put it. Here's the Gravel Institute. And I ended up DMing the boys over there, the 3 boys that are still running this situation. I don't know if it's the 3 of them. Vladimir Putin is an appalling leader. The brutal conflict he is trying to sell to the Russian people will only hurt them, Ukrainians, and the world, fam.
Okay, so first of all, your feelings about Vladimir Putin are irrelevant. I don't care about Vladimir Putin. If he's an asshole, if he's a right winger, if he's a left, I don't care. That has nothing to do with the fact that what is happening right now are consequences of our U.S. interventionism and our backing of neo-Nazis in Ukraine in 2014. But they're of course, Vladimir Putin is, guess what? Vladimir Putin hates leftists. That's their narrative. Because Vladimir Putin said something against the left, so now, I have to go for my fucking ideology, right? That says, I must hate everything that is on the right. And even if he's right in this situation, no. So Vladimir Putin hates leftists, so he's demonized. So let's start with Vladimir Putin being an appalling leader, which your fucking opinion, I'm sorry, as an American on who Vladimir Putin is fucking irrelevant. We have nothing to do there. We've only made the situation what it is today. And then they go on to the brutal conflict he's trying to sell. That's the conflict the United States created. And Mike Gravel, like you said, we'll read it, was turning in his grave. Like, this is fucking ridiculous. They're using the same state narrative, State Department talking points that mainstream media and MSNBC are using. What's the difference then between progressives and liberals at this point, right? And then they go for the virtue signaling, will only hurt Ukrainians, Russians, and the world, as if you fucking understand who's being hurt right now. These people are literally being murdered by neo-Nazis, and here you are supporting the state narrative. How stupid can you be? And these people got like 3,000, 4,000 likes, and it really irritates the hell out of me how easily people just take what somebody like the Gravel Institute says because they're called the Gravel Institute, or what Kyle Polinsky says because he's got 900,000 subscribers, and they're like, wow, he summarized it pretty well, blah, 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 blah. Where the hell are you guys getting your information from? It is complete and total propaganda, just with a progressive spin to it.
Yeah, they're getting it from the mainstream media. They're actually just regurgitating and repeating out the words from CIA talking points. And I wrote it down. Mike Gravel is rolling in his grave. Whatever idiots, and I thought about removing that, but I was like, no, I'm going to go fucking hard here so they understand. Whatever idiots are running this institution need to stop right away with these disgusting posts, resign, and hand it over to the people who will best represent what Senator Gravel stood for. Peace. That is what he stood for, and that's what he would have been bringing to this discussion. And by the way, fam, it's neo-Nazis that are killing people. We're killing people in the Donbass region, armed by the West. Yeah. And I put down Oz's tweet, the cartoon we live in is actually a nightmare. Sorry to see Mike Gravel disrespected like this.
Ooh, Oz coming in with a dagger. It's disrespectful to his memory. It's disrespectful to any anti-imperialist and anti-war person. 100%, Pasta. Yep. It's just,
Let's bring your tweet up here. And this is what you said. Go ahead, fam. I'll let you read this one.
I said, tell me you don't know anything about Russia, Ukraine, and just decided to tweet what you heard somebody of high profile say, because these people literally copy paste what somebody else said. Kyle said this, or TYT, or maybe Mehdi Hassan, or somebody that is a progressive but is still, respected in the mainstream. Let me just copy what they said, and it sounds exactly like that. And I said, Russia is ensuring no more manufacturing consent for war by NATO and the US, considering that they did this in 2014 when they backed neo-Nazis and still do now. So all these people all of a sudden bringing up the Minsk agreement that was disrespected for so long.
Yeah.
Like this, they don't even know what it is. And it's just like, NATO wasn't supposed to continue expanding. This is,
Yep.
I mean, this is just, I mean, this is basic. Even if you didn't know anything and if you paid a little bit of attention, you would know that what we're living is a consequence, what they're living is a consequence of 2014. But the problem is these people haven't looked at it until recently, because now, the US mainstream media was like, Putin is invading Russia. Putin is invading Russia. They're fomenting war, blah, blah, blah. And for a minute there in the beginning, people were like, no, that's not happening. And then you saw people like Hassan Piker and Emma Vigilant delete their tweets they were a little bit more fence sitting. It wasn't even like an anti-imperialist tweet. It was just like fence sitting to, oh no, Putin is really instigating war. He's being really aggressive, because it's like somebody called them and said, you can't put this, right? Because these people are controlled opposition. These people are not actual anti-imperialist media. They're controlled opposition. And so listening to them at this point, I think you're a moron if you continue listening to them. I don't care if they were your the first person you watched. I don't care if they got you into politics. Fuck them. You outgrew them. You moved on. Understand that you're listening to you're listening to lies, to propaganda. It's just prettier propaganda than what Rachel Maddow says, but it's still propaganda.
Yeah. And I think there's a danger for fence sitting, fam, because like, you come off as somebody who seems reasonable, but then you're going to still turn around and manufacture consent for the empire to do what it does, which is fucking regime change and fascism. And, here's somebody here who got gets a lot of shit sometimes, but when he gets it right, I'm going to put him out there. He said, what brutal conflict is he engaging in? And this is Jackson Hinkle, sending peacekeepers into the Donbass to stop bloodshed. There have been 14,000 plus individuals, a quarter of them civilians, who have been killed in the Ukraine Azov-led aggression in the region since 2014. And, he might get it wrong sometime and he gets a lot of shit, but he got it right there as well. We just talked with Sleboda. There was a sniper from the Ukrainian Kiev side, the Azov side, that has killed over 100 citizens in the Donbass. And a lot of them would be citizens, right? They're not going to be army personnel. That's what's going on. They've been getting shelled for the last 8 years. So enough was enough. He sent in the Russian troops who will act as peacekeepers, because now they can't start shelling it, because if they shell and they hit a Russian troop, now they really got themselves in the cookie jar. So that's why him sending those troops in right away is not an invasion. It's to stop the bombing, stop the killing, and stop the shelling. That's what it does, fam.
Yeah, Putin recognizing that the territories is a big deal. Like, and of course, I don't think he puts us in there, but Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, all also recognize
Syria
territories as well. Syria as well, yes. And our friend Dan Kobelik was one of the first people talking about this. And so I just think it's important that people understand, like, you can go back to our videos and look, we've been talking about this for years. This didn't just happen overnight. This isn't just Putin coming in, showing his aggressive power. That's how the media and progressive media, which is just basically liberal media for children, is painting it, right? And they're painting it like, oh, this is a conflict that Putin is escalating is to show his superiority to the U.S. and blah, blah, blah. No, and because Putin is a right-winger just like Trump. Again, they try to tie back everything to fucking Donald Trump. Donald Trump hasn't been in power for almost 2 years now, and you're fucking tying everything back to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
They still do. By the way, Primo Nutmeg, or was Primo Radical now and stuff like that, he even put something out there. It says, it's a real travesty that after being publicly humiliated for repeatedly misrepresenting Senator Gravel about numerous things, you are still using his name after his passing to spout bullshit he would never say. You guys are the epitome of the term grifters. I DM'd them. I said, enough is enough. Give it over to somebody. I said it in my tweet. I said it to them personally. I said, this is disgusting. Mike Gravel would never stand for this stuff. And here is Throne of Blood with this statement. You disrespect Mike Gravel and his memory. The United States has no concern for Russia or Ukrainian citizens. Their only concern is for war and profit, fam. And that war is a proxy war on Russia's border. And they put this into play in 2014, fam.
Yeah. And you know what? That is the epitome of what it means to be a grifter. to continue capitalizing on his memory and to continue making money off his memory and not even saying the things he would say, not even standing where things he would be standing on. It's disgusting. It really is. I think people should really call them out and stop following them and stop, legitimizing them, because that's all it is. It's
too many likes
right now.
Too many likes, and I hope people who follow Mike Gravel and they'll have something to say about that. Titus Polo says, so you guys are changing your name to the Kissinger Institute now?
I mean, there's really little difference between what Kissinger and warmongers would say. I mean, seriously. I mean, you're advocating literal CIA state narratives, talking points.
Yeah. This next one.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. Breaking. Russia invades Ukraine. All in caps, fam.
All in caps.
Oh, my God. And then put up Fee's tweet right after. Go ahead, fam. I'll let you go.
Well, I was going to say, this is the way he put it on caps and everything is literally what CNN or MSNBC, this is what they do. They're like, look, and something so false. Russia invades Ukraine. There's no nuance to it. There's no understanding of it. And did you listen to his video, Pasta? Because I listened to a portion of it before I fucking I was like, wow.
Oz did.
Everything was, in fact, I wish I had one of our fams they clipped out a little piece of it. It could literally be like Pompeo's take on it. Like, it is just so bad. It was so bad. So I said, with progressive leftists like this, who needs neocons? Seriously. Who needs a neocon when you have Kyle Kalinske pushing this pro-war, just regime change bullshit, completely falling for the State Department narrative? And I think that's the point. That's the point. These people are controlled opposition. This is their role, and they're doing their role really well. So the full left is showing their whole ass on this. And I mean, I didn't restrain there. They're showing their whole ass on this because, there's been what Franco likes to call the great unmasking, right? He was like, it started with first vote. It started even long before that, but there's just been unmasking of people. COVID, Donald Trump, the election, January 6th, all of that show this. This is yet another unmasking as to who's really understanding of really what it means to be an anti-imperialist. And their caveat is always like, well, you can be against, U.S. imperialism, but you can also be against Russian imperialism. But it doesn't apply in this case because Russia isn't the one with hundreds of military bases all over the world. And Russia isn't the one that started this fucking conflict. We did. And so you can't use that and say, and this is where they get the progressives. They're like, the Ukrainian people want peace. The Ukrainian people, and this is really, it's just cringy to watch, right? But it exposes just so many people. So many.
You know what? And it's not really, I'm not trying to expose these people. I'm trying to expose the narrative. And listen, we were pissed off on people on Friday, and we're going to talk about that with the Marianne Williamson sees the house situation. We're like, why? Now you're just sending sheep to slaughter at this point. Why? We were pissed at them on Sunday, pissed at anti-imperialists for going at and just ruining this whole, or just painting a bad picture of what's going on with the trucker convoy, not talking about what it really is, not listening to people like Corey Mornstar, who's on the ground and stuff like that. And we were pissed at them. I got to be honest with you, Monday, a whole new set of people like this was surprising to me. All three of these people that were bringing out and stuff, I expected from the mainstream media, right? Like, you saw the mainstream media. It's an invasion. Putin doesn't care about the territories. He just he wants to subvert democracy and all this other thing. And the maniac, the ex-KGB guy is going on a terror, all this stuff. I expected for that. I didn't expect it from these people. And I really, to tell you the truth, I didn't expect it from the Gravel Institute. I didn't expect it from Kyle. And I didn't expect it from these guys over here too. The Vanguard. Putin should absolutely be called out for Russia's imperialist violation of Ukraine's sovereignty. That being said, for the love of God, it's not worth starting World War III over. The both sidings, the fence fucking sitting, that first sentence. What do you mean Putin should be absolutely called out for Russia's imperialist violation of Ukraine's sovereignty? Do you know anything that happened in 2014? Why we're here? They never even recognized that government in 2014, the Eastern Ukrainians, because they called it an illegitimate government. And guess what? It was. And we got all
90%. 90% of the people voted for a president that got ousted and replaced by a U.S.-backed choice, right? And backed by the Azov Battalion, literal neo-Nazis. And you know what irritates me the most and why I got so mad? It's not that I didn't expect these people to have this take at this point, because I knew there's only so much you can cosplay, because I think Steve is with me here. When it comes to some of these people like Kyle Kalinske and the Vanguard, they have the right takes a lot of the time, because they look to where the popularity goes within the leftist movement, and they that's where they go with. But once there is nobody to really to look at, this issue is so deep and nuanced, and you have to literally know what you're talking about to actually talk about and not show your whole ass, then it's harder for them to mimic. And so that's why I think you could see who really does their homework and who really knows what they're talking about and who really just mimics.
Yeah.
And it exposed a lot of the people who just get their news from somebody else, from some other YouTuber who gets their news from some other YouTuber. Like they don't really look at the information itself. And so that's not surprising to me. But what is surprising is that they just show their whole ass on this, because I mean, like I said, like 90% of the people in that region voted for somebody else. And so they're making this about Putin. They're making this about Russia's imperialism, when it's about our imperialism, U.S. imperialism. And then they deleted the tweet. They didn't say, sorry, we were wrong. They simply deleted the tweet. And then they made another tweet.
Yeah, good, fam. I was just going to say, the thing is that, what they need to do is do what we did. We just had on Mark Sleboda. He's been on the show about 5 or 6 times now. He's an expert in that area. He just did 6 interviews today, okay, all about this fucking particular subject. Get the people on who know what they're talking about. We paid attention to this, but when we started talking to Mark, we started educating ourselves more on it from somebody from that area. We had Dan Kovalik on the show to come talk about it. We talked with George Simswali about what happened with Belarus and Ukraine and how it was all tied into what's going on with the journalists. Talk to people who know what they're talking about, and that's their area. That's what you do. They never do, because like you said, they'd rather get on and regurgitate about what's going on TMZ style in the fucking progressive movement rather than do this work what we did today. That's it. Yeah. Period. Bottom line.
Because it's easy. And also you can do your own research too. You can literally look at these sources. You can look at the sources that are not from Western media that are going to regurgitate the same thing. Why would Kyle Kalinske be the person you go to for your fucking news on Ukraine and Russia? I mean, honestly, why would that be? Go to the people who live in the region or who understand, who are specialized in the region, or at the very least, read their articles, listen, expand your fucking mind. It's not like, if you're going to do this, if you're going to be a commentator or a journalist, and I mean, I think they're commentators on YouTube. I don't think they consider themselves journalists, so they don't have the onus of that.
They can say they're a broadcast journalist, right? They can say they're a broadcast journalist.
Yeah, but at the same time, whatever. But you still have to know what you're talking about, or you are.
There's responsibilities.
I'm not telling you that you should be taken down for spewing disinformation, but you are spewing actual disinformation. You're not helping the progressive cause that you named your show after, the Vanguard. You're not helping this anti-imperialist movement when you're regurgitating State Department talking points. And again, it's it's the same fucking people that do a lazy job and have the most, they get so pushed by the algorithm and so revered by so many people, and it irritates the hell out of me. I'm like, why are you promoting people who don't even do the littlest tiny bit of research? And it's really obnoxious. And you're right. I mean, we didn't start with this knowledge. We got to that knowledge, but we did our fucking work.
Yeah.
And like I said, you guys can go through our videos and look at them from years ago, right?
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a long time. We've been talking about how the people in Donbass have been suffering under the Western-backed regime. And here's Max Blumenthal putting it out. The people of Donbass have suffered immensely under the regime installed by the U.S. in Kiev. They've seen their language and citizenship officially eroded, Nazi militias placed on their doorsteps, and artillery shells rained down on their homes. It's easy to see why they are celebrating, and everything he put there is stuff we've talked about, stripping the language away.
They've been killed. I mean, they've been murdered. I mean, this is
the language too, though. Pulling away the language and,
the culture.
Yeah.
It's an ethnic cleansing. And again, I have to re-mention what Mark said. The caveat that somebody used against me was, oh yeah, how could they be, a bunch of Nazis when they have a Jewish leader now in Zelensky? It's because this is about anti-Russian sentiment. Nazis don't all just hate Jews. Like they hate other ethnic groups, ethnic minorities. It's ethnic cleansing. And so you can't just use that to discount and say that that's not happening. And that's what I was going to say. It really irritates me the most because it is these people that are screaming about Putin that are completely just so hell-bent on talking about the trucker convoy being right-wing, on how only right-wingers are anti-vaxxers and anti-mandate, and how all the people and how Trumpers are blah, blah, blah. And they just generally they're talking about the right wing when it comes to domestic issues in America. And they completely are not even touching on the fact that the United States continues to weaponize, to give weapons to neo-Nazis right now, in 2022, just like they did in 2014. And they continue to do it. And they're gaslighting people into saying this is Putin when this is the result of our interventionism in 2014, our backing and of arming neo-Nazi groups, and we're still doing it today. Yet in order to completely distract from that fact, the U.S. State Department is saying, Putin is doing this and Putin is a right-winger and you should hate Putin. And the idiot left, the U.S. American left, that is pretty much just full-on co-opted. And I said that in another tweet. And I'll read it. I'll just read it. I thought
I put it in there too, like 98%, right?
Yeah.
I didn't put it in there. My bad.
But it's just, they're completely done. They're done. I mean, this was the last straw for me.
Bam, do you want to put it in the slide deck really quick while we just play the video of the fireworks going on in Donbass?
Yeah.
So we can see it on the screen, because I think this is beautiful here. The people of Donbass are now celebrating because they know that the military coming in, for the Russian military coming in, it is peacekeepers, because now they're not going to get shelled on a regular basis, and they can possibly see peace for the future. I didn't get to a point where I got to ask Mark what they're going to do for resources and infrastructure moving forward. That's a discussion for another day, because the conflict is still hot, being that 2/3 of the actual territory still has the Kiev military forces in it. But let's look at the people celebrating. That tweet by Blumenthal, while you get your tweet into the deck, and then we'll show it up board to finish up the section. They get their own flag eventually. They'll have their own sovereignty. They won't have to be worried about, neo-Nazis on their doorsteps and being shelled. They don't have to worry about the language they speak. I'm hoping for peace. It's still, and like Mark said, this is going to be a win-win situation for both of them now, because now it's almost like a natural redistricting of sorts, where Zelensky and his crew, his peeps, can go and win their elections and control what happens in their part of the Ukraine now, of Western Ukraine. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward. Did you get it in?
Yeah, I put it underneath the video in the comment section right here. You can see it. So there's a link. I just put the link there if you can go to it. But no, yeah, I mean, they have every reason to celebrate. And it's still, like Mark said, this is not the end. This is the end of the beginning, because there's so much that can happen, and this is a very precarious situation that the United States has put Putin in. Because honestly, I don't know if I would have responded as amicably. Like, I was thinking this, I'm like, damn, like, he's really like trying here. And I'm not even like, I don't have the same ideology as Putin, Putin does lean more right. He's definitely more of a nationalist. But you kind of understand where that is coming from, where that nationalism is coming from, because what else are you going to do?
It's funny, fam. Right now, there's Alex Rubenstein sent us that tweet today of the mainstream media, the MSNBC, or was it CNN? I think it was MSNBC. It was Chris Hayes' show. There was a substitute teacher in there, and pretty much now it's this attack on Tucker Carlson's a Russian agent, pretty much, and he's awful. And look what Tucker Carlson's doing. Motherfuckers had John Bolton on their goddamn show. Like, really, this is the fucking, I mean, mainstream media, especially leftist mainstream media, has become a parody of itself at this point. Like, oh my God, Tucker Carlson's bad. He's a pro-Russian carrying, water for the Kremlin.
That's liberal media.
Yeah.
leftist media has become a caricature of liberal media. Like they're essentially, there's really no separation between like those takes that we just went over from the Gravel Institute, Vanguard, Kyle Kalinske. I didn't even put TYT in there, but you know, Anna just met with one of these fucking Ukrainian like assholes. And she like, and they're gloating about it, right? Yeah. And it's just, yeah, like they're a caricature of that. They're pretty much, there's no difference.
Let's get this tweet on the screen, fam. This was fire. We'll finish up. Oz, we'll skip the 2 videos I have from RT. They were pretty awesome, but we have Mark Sleboda on instead. So, yeah, take a look at this right here what Fee has put up. Go ahead, Fee.
Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now. Okay, so I said, it's been happening, right? We've been seeing this, like unmasking, but 98% of the U.S. left, and this is just me putting out a number because I really feel there's very few of us left that are actually, you know, what I would consider to be what used to be the old school left. I mean, it doesn't matter at this fucking point, but in order for people to kind of visualize it, right? I said 98% of the U.S. left is officially pro-war, pro-segregation, pro-censorship, pro-police, and pro-surveillance. I mean, you can go and look at that too. You can, and I didn't even get to add, you know, pro-medical tyranny, which I was kind of putting in there with the pro-segregation. You know, they're
no, I know.
Pro-mandate,
yeah, pro-censorship, yeah.
Yeah, my congrats to the national security state apparatus for lobotomizing them into useful tools for the empire, because I don't know what else this is. This is a lobotomy of their brain. Like they completely lost the entire notion of what it is to be an anti-imperialist and to be an anti-authoritarian. The rest of us, though, we see you. And like, I didn't think this would really get that much play because I don't know. I didn't think like there were, I didn't think that many people were aware as to what I was talking about, but there's a lot, I guess there's a lot of people that are feeling like this about the current state of the U.S. left with everything that's happening at every turn. Their attempt to still reform the Democratic Party, their attempt to, you know, to minimize what the United States has done to Russia, what the consequences of what these people in the Donbass region are experiencing, like with these neo-Nazis, like everything that's happened with COVID, all of that, like it's just so frustrating, and it just feels like people's brains were taken out. Like, I don't know what else. I mean, we've talked about the mass formation psychosis or neurosis or whatever you want to call it, but we've talked about that. And it really does seem like that. I mean, this is some sort of propaganda brainwashing, right?
It certainly is. And, you know, there is some laziness over here. There is some, yeah, I mean, the propaganda is just taking a hold, right? Like, you know, they put it out there, they put the information, and people just swallow it up. They don't, you know, I mean, I guess I'm very happy because Mark Sleboda has come on our show and talked about this, but I followed Mark Sleboda when this shit was going down in 2014. Him and Kevin Zeese are the ones I turned to learn and educate myself on the situation. It's just a blessing that Sleboda is part of the show. He comes on, he gets to talk about these issues, and you just get a good perspective of what's going on. I feel every single time I bring him on, the research beforehand, the research after, which he leads you the way. I feel like I am getting myself educated on the subject that most people in the not even just the mainstream media, but the independent media, just don't, you know, they don't fulfill. They just, they don't.
But it's also, I'm also going to call out the audience members of these shows, because if I mean, you know, people like to watch, like in leftist media, they like to watch the drama, right? So like if you put out a video that says Kyle Kalinske is talking shit about Russia or something, that's going to get more views, but is it really going to go through the deep nuance understanding of what like Mark Sleboda just did, right? Of what you just went through with Mark and all of that, all of like what happened and how did we get here and so on, right? And that doesn't get the views, but that should be what you're looking at. But people are lazy. Content creators are lazy. They see somebody get a lot of views. They're like, well, what do I have to do to get all these views? And so they recreate the same fucking bullshit, but it's not real information, because in order to understand something, you can't just start at the surface level. You have to start as to, okay, what happened? And this is, you know, this, you could talk about this possibly from my acting days, but you have to know about the moment before. You can't just come in and just say, oh, okay, I'm this person and this is what's happening now. No, what happened to get you here? Yeah, and so that's, and I think a lot of people in independent media, they miss that because they're so hyper focused on like views and getting like all this sort of like attention. But that's not what we like, why we do what we do. So it's just like, it's just so obnoxious. And I'm having very little patience with people now. I'm like, why do you still, I straight up tell people, like, why do you still watch Kyle Kalinske? Like, why do you still watch any of these people? Like, why do you even pay attention to what these people have to say? And why do you give them accolades when they say the most basic, you know, milquetoast thing that everybody else has been saying for like 3 years? Like, what, why? Like, hello? Like, start like understanding. Like, it's not like just hating. It's not like jealousy. It's just like, start understanding why you're not getting here, because you're still in this dimension when you need to be in this dimension. These people are looking at things from a 2-dimensional perspective when we're near the fucking goddamn 4th dimension. And like, you have to understand things from a different dimensional view. Otherwise, you know, you're just an ant and you're looking at what's in front of you and what's next to you, but you can't see what's above you or what's under you. And so, and that's the problem.
Well, fam, not everybody can be a 5th dimensional being like yourself. And like you said, you know, it's
an inside joke, guys.
Yeah, it is. She's a 5th dimensional being, but
it was 6, fam.
Whatever. Okay. I'll give you 5. I didn't give you 6. Okay. But by design, you know, it seems when it comes to the Russian-Ukraine situation, by design, the mainstream media starts off from Crimea, right? That's their jumping point.
Yeah.
By accident, not by design, a lot of independent media leftists, what we just observed right here, and this is why we kind of pointed it out, we're not pointing out the individuals, we're pointing out the behavior by independent left, supposedly. They start by from Crimea, but not by design. And that is a problem. You got to go back. Or if you're climbing up the mountain, remember the old commercial? You must go higher, my son. You got to dig deeper. And that's where we're at. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining on the Rokfin over there. We got 83 people, but guess what? We have 320 people hanging on to YouTube, guys. If you haven't gone over to the Rokfin, please do. That's ROKFIN. Trey Wright is out there trolling David Dole right now on Twitter as he's watching the show. Love you all. David Dole asked who he should have on to talk about Russia, Crimea. I think he put a picture of us up, and then he immediately got blocked by David Dole. David, you should go out and cover the Canadian protest. You fucking live there, you cuck. Rob Janot, thank you for the Super 8 contribution. Coffee money. Thanks for having Mark on at the Convo Couch. Gene Zyback, thank you for reporting. Yes, you're absolutely right about Ukraine. Thank you so much, Gene. We've done the homework. Chris Leone, thank you so much for the Super 8 contribution. Hey, guys, love you both. Pasta and Steve are wonderful in the morning. So disappointed to see Ron Placone smearing the convoy. He called them Nazis yesterday on Nick's Cruz's stream. He was invited to talk about the general strikes and completely missed the truckers movement. He dismissed it as Nazis. We now see who stands by us. Let's remember, it's about class, and Ron and Graham are well off. Chris, you're going to have to take that up with Ron and Graham. I have no opinions on the situation anymore. We're just going to do us. We're going to talk about the things that we feel are right. We here support the truckers. We look at it as an actual, and I don't want to say we serve the truckers per se. We support the stand against the fascist mandates. That's what we stand for. And we see it as a workers' revolution. And we're not going to worry about people's... Yeah.
And an opportunity. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I disagree with Ron, and I think it's really dumb to call them Nazis. And I think you haven't done the homework and you don't know what you're talking about. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, I can't control what people's opinions are. I can only tell you what we believe the correct cause is and why we're supporting the workers, because this is an opportunity for the left to learn and understand what has the left in America done, really? What movement has the left in America had in recent times that's gotten closest to that? I mean, the BLM was an attempt, again, it was co-opted by the liberals. So then that killed that movement because it was co-opted by the liberals, right? And so they're talking about co-option of the truckers. Well, look what happened to the BLM movement. And you know, and there's the general strike calling for general strike. How are you gonna have a general strike if you're gonna call people that disagree with you Nazis? Everybody, and Mark even said it. You know, in the United States, anybody that disagrees with you is a Nazi. And it's just the stupidest thing because it diminishes the word. Then the word has no meaning. And it's like the left in the United States will never organize anything remotely close to a multifaceted, intersectional, you know, all the things they talk about, an intersectional working class movement, the way they're acting like this. They will never do it. Like they just won't. They just won't. That's not where they're at. They need to evolve a little bit more in order to get there.
Well, fam, if there are Nazis out there, you better give a call to Corey Morningstar and tell her to stop hanging out with those lovely Nazis in Canada over there and stuff like that.
The nicest fucking lady, I swear. Jesus.
Zero, by the way, zero violence whatsoever until the police a la UN Blue Hats showed up.
Just like we said with BLM, right? Oh, there was no violence there until the cops showed up. Why does that statement only apply to one group and not the other? Just because you don't think mandate and being anti-mandate is important, even though it's going to usher in the fourth industrial revolution? Things that you guys don't talk about? Okay.
People are way off. Ronnie Graham, thank you so much. In the same way, there are times when the only music I can listen to is Bach or Schoenberg. There are times when I can only watch the Convo Couch. That is some great company. Thank you so much. You don't like Beethoven? He doesn't like Beethoven. That's a movie called The Specialist, I believe. Oh, no, was it The Specialist? What was the movie? The Professional, with Jean Reno and Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman plays a great DEA agent. And Natalie Portman is a 14-year-old, one of her first movies, amazing movie. I haven't seen The Professional. Go see it. My favorite actor, Danny Aiello, he plays Old Tony. And nobody knocks off Old Tony, fam. DC, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. Have you all applied to get verified blue checks on social media for both your channel pages and personal accounts? Just curious about the process for that. We can't let these grifters continue to get away with being virtually the only authoritative sources on Twitter, etc. Hey, I don't know, fam, if you've applied, but I'm getting ready to retire at 10,000 subscribers, 10,000 followers. I'm retiring.
I don't think you should retire. I don't think you should retire, Pasta.
I'm going somewhere else. I'm going somewhere else. If Panquake gets their shit going, or Getter doesn't share my data, or whoever opens up, I'm going somewhere else, fam. I don't know. I'm not 100% on it, but
I think we should all expand somewhere else. I also don't think we should leave these platforms to the shitlobs, because then that's all that will be. But no, I haven't applied because I mean, I will, I guess, eventually. I'm just not. That's not my number one priority, is to be a blue check. And I frankly think they're going to deny it to the real people that are a threat at this point, because maybe before, you know, things got really, really heated, they were giving them away more easily. But now, you know, Julian Assange didn't have a blue check. They didn't give it to him. I mean, if you're any sort of threat to the State Department and the empire, they're going to make sure that you are shut down. And so, you know, I think they're going to deny it, but sure. I mean, and also, you know, you have to look at those things. You guys have to look at those things as to who's allowed to have certain things and who isn't.
Absolutely.
And the things that they talk about, that they talk about as well.
Chris Leone says the Vanguard are the definition of grifters. The mom of one of the hosts works as a staffer in D.C., so that's why the shit takes from COVID to Russia. Also, shame on Brianna Joy Gray for doing that live stream. She is their token. Also, she is wealthy as well. And also, what do they mean by seize the house? Don't Dems have full control of the house right now? Seize it with progressives.
Yeah.
Scotty Johnson, thank you for the Super Red contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. And DC, why would anyone seriously believe that the MK Ultra project has not been improved upon since the 1950s and 1960s? DC exactly is right. Yeah. Michael Castelli. Sorry, go ahead.
No, because they frame it as conspiracy. That's why.
Yeah. Michael Castelli, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. Remember, they coined the term conspiracy theory to be pushed back against anybody who was speaking out against the narrative of the John F. Kennedy murder at the time and trying to say it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald operating on the behalf of ex-Cuban exiles and bullshit. Trey Wright, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. Fee rants always inject inspiration and fight in me. I'm lucky as fuck to discover the Convo Couch. And we saw the tweet. I liked it. Yes, Fee, you're when you go off, your rants, they inspire people. Someone else might get inspired. Might be the shadow banned refugee. Thank you for the Super 8 contribution. The call of nationalists is cock-a-doodle-doo. All mass politics require mass formation. All mass formation requires an architect. All architects can be corrupted. As Emma Goldman was right over a century ago, the masses are too goddamn dangerous. The southeast of Ukraine has always wanted its independence from the West and the East. The ultimatum is anarchy or annihilation. Thank you so much, Shadowban Refugee. And Angel Santos, thank you for the Super 8 contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch. 106 watchers on the Rokfin, 300 on the YouTubes. Let's get on over. Let's get that number up to 200 on the Rokfin. This is the section we're about to go into, is the main fight of the evening. This is what we wanted to do. This is why we wanted to have a show. We said that we were just going to do this one section. So this 2.5 hours, the hour and a half we just did was bonus material for you, 90 minutes of bonus material. Fam, let's get into it. We wanted to get your thoughts on what had transpired with the whole Seize the House stream. We broke it down the other day. I kind of went off. My throat was sore for yelling so much because I just thought it was ridiculous. Why don't you give us a take on what you thought, and you can bring on in your friend, Comrade Misty, at your leisure.
I'm bringing in Misty?
No, you have a tweet. Is that not the tweet that's not supposed to come up? I'm sorry. My bad.
I'm confused.
I'm sorry. Oz had it in the queue ready to get next, and then he just changed it over. Oz, you're killing me. Sorry.
Okay, so let's just start with what I thought we were going to start with, which is the videos, right?
Yes.
Okay, so guys, I don't know if you don't know already, but Marianne Williamson Seize the House panel was the most arrogant, elitist, out of touch thing I've seen in recent times. You have Marianne Williamson, Crystal Ball, I forget this lady's name.
Furlano.
Julie Furlano, is that her name?
Linda Furlano or something, or Julie Furlano? Yeah.
Julie, I don't care. And Katie Halper and Brianna Joy Gray. I don't know about the other one, but all of the other ones that I do know of have money. They're stable. They don't have to worry about bills and working class things of that nature. And so the comments they made reinforce that. They reinforce that, because if you are a working class person and you have bills to pay and you don't have health care, and people keep telling you that voting for a progressive is going to change your life for the better, and these people keep coming to you with promises like, some fucking lover promising you the moon and the stars, and then they don't deliver, and they tell you no, it's okay, this time it'll be different. You're fed up. You can't do this anymore, because it's now costing you as a poor person money. They're asking poor people from the beginning of this whole fucking stream. They ask poor people to donate to Seize the House. First of all, I don't know anything about where that money goes to, how it's distributed, like what? And who's at the helm of this? Oh, Crystal Ball and all of these people. Crystal Ball, who's dating Kyle Kulinski, who are the Justice Democrats, who was a complete and total just ripoff, where people were donating their hard-earned money for what? For what? What did you get out of the Justice Democrats? Literally, what did you get out of them? So now this whole grift has become, well, corporate Democrats aren't doing the job, so you have to donate to non-corporate Democrats. Okay, fine. So big business donates to corporate Democrats, but who donates to non-corporate Democrats? Oh, poor people. So you're taking money away from poor people. So these non-corporate Democrats don't do anything for poor people and still do the bidding of corporate Democrats. So you're really screwing poor people even more now, because you're giving them this false hope that they're going to do something. Just if they have one more person, if they have Nina Turner, if they have XYZ, it's going to be different this time. And you know what? It's just absolutely enraging to me. So let's just watch the first video.
And you want to give to them individually, feel free. please don't think that any amount is too small, because a lot of people are watching right now. Your $5 does matter. Your $10 does matter, or however much you want to give. Up to $2,800 would be the legal. So you do what is right for you. Anything you give is appreciated. And I think when you hear these candidates tonight, you'll know why all of us have faith that if we get them to Washington, they'll change this country.
And I do think it's important, one thing you said there, which is that there are a lot of other this is not a comprehensive list tonight that you're going to meet of the great candidates that are out there. These are just the number that we could fit into this live stream. Bree, I wanted to ask you, we have all had our political hearts broken more than a time or two at this point. And there are a lot of folks out there, some of whom may be watching the stream right now, who say, you know what? I just don't believe this is going to work. I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think it's going to change. I believed in the squad. They haven't, we just saw AOC this week unwilling to even say a word against Nancy Pelosi in an interview. I just don't know that this direction is a fruitful use of time. And some people would even go further and say, in fact, by even backing people in Democratic primaries, you're sort of bolstering the Democratic Party and channeling people into a Democratic Party that does not deserve their support. So let me ask you.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, I don't know, it would have been cool to hear what she finish what she says, because Brianna Jo Gray basically goes on to mention that, she is partial to that argument that, why are you still doing this and blah, blah, blah. So they understand that this is they know that people are against this, that people are, all you had to do was take 2 seconds to go to the chat or look at the comments that people wrote under this video to know that people were like, what the fuck are you doing? This is just ridiculous. This is so out of touch. This is so arrogant. This is so elitist. And it's this whole thing. Well, like Marianne says, we're doing something. It's not that you're not doing anything. You're just doing the motions that have been done for decades. If this was 2017. By the way, Pasta and I in 2017, we did this thing. We interviewed many candidates. We said, okay, let's give them a shot. It's 2017. It's right after Bernie. Let's see if we can get some people in Congress. Let's do this inside-outside strategy. 2017, right? We interviewed candidates in Florida, in New Jersey, Jim Keedy in New Jersey. We had a list of candidates to watch. That
we had a whole day,
favorite.
fam. Remember? We had a whole day. It was candidate day. We started early in the morning. We went and we ended up with Soraya Foss, who was the one libertarian candidate, but all the other candidates before that were all these type of candidates, these grassroots candidates that are on this show. Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
No, they were the same type of candidates. And guess what? They said the same things. And that was 2017. So fast forward 5 years later, you're giving me the same bullshit, the same type of candidates. Oh, the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is a corporate fucking fourth industrial revolution piece of legislation that is wrapped with privatization for the billionaires and this oligarchy, and it's not going to do anything to the environment. It's just going to exploit the activism for environmentalism, but it's not going to actually work to solve anything. And it's also not going to get passed in the way you guys think it's going to get passed. You have a majority in the House of Democrats. You have a progressive caucus of over 101 members that are completely and utterly useless because they don't do anything remotely progressive. And so you want more of that? And you think having more of that, and you think somehow these people that are talking with the same exact shit that the candidates that came in 2017 were talking about are going to be any different than the squad? Really? Or do you just not care because guess what? Even if it doesn't work out, you'll be fine. And that's where I think this is at here. Because at the end of the day, Marianne, Crystal, Katie, all these people are going to be fine. And it's fine. This isn't a personal attack on them. I'm just telling you, you're going to be fine economically.
Yeah.
You don't have anything to lose. In fact, you do a stream like this, you have more to gain. Oh, look, like these are the progressives, influencers fighting for the working class. but none of them are working class.
Yeah.
So okay,
That's what
it's just like so.
Reverend Annie Chambers.
It's a joke. Why? Exactly. It's like the poor people's movement having no working class leaders talking about what the working class needs. It's fucking ridiculous. Why don't you have any working class people on your streams? Why do you only go to who you think can get you the most views? Ooh, let's see who's an influencer who can get us the most views and the most connections. That's how it comes across. I'm not saying it's your intention, but I don't know. Who am I to say it isn't? Because that's how it comes across when you have a panel of, like Crystal Ball with her show, Brianna Joy Gray, you have Marianne Williamson who ran for office, and you have Katie Halper, and they have on Useful Idiots, and they have all these shows and all these connections. None of these people are working class, and none of these people made any sort of effort to include working class voices. And the questions don't even. We're not even going to go that into the candidate section, really, but because I couldn't. I listened to it and I'm like, this is just regurgitation. But the questions these people ask, they're all journalists, right? I mean, the vast majority of you. Why are you asking such milquetoast general questions? Yeah. Why not ask?
It's in the bubble.
Specifics of where they stand. On
it's the echo chamber too. It's the echo chamber. It's what they want to hear. I do believe that.
I know you can ask better questions than that.
Of course, absolutely, fam. But when you look at these candidates, and I do believe that Nina Turner and Bernie Sanders were probably screwed over in their elections. I believe they had enough popular support where they should have won if the elections were fair. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think a lot of these candidates that they put up there would win, even if the elections were fair, because they just are virtue signaling with the Green New Deal and the Medicare for all,
and COVID.
And it's just in what
and COVID.
And COVID,
status quo narratives on COVID.
Go to their websites, right? Like I went to a lot of people's websites who were on this thing. There's nothing about that election system on their website. Okay, let's go to the way. There's no foreign policy, fam. There's nothing about civil liberties and censorship. And it is, like you said, a complete capitulation to Big Pharma. And they never say what they're going to do. In other words, you get elected. How are you going to push these policies when you have Nancy Pelosi as the leader of your party? How are you going to do it? What are you going to do in your first 100 days? They just think if they scream louder against the machine and go, bad, I'm calling you out, that they're going to get things done.
And they scream loud, and every single candidate that we've had until this point screams loud. And the minute they get in, there's a whimper. And that's all you get from them, a fucking whimper. So you're not going to convince me to tell poor people, to put their money into something like this instead of putting their money into mutual aid, into organizing. Something like what the people are organizing in Canada, something that is an actual movement against, that literally sees as the means of production. Because a lot of these people consider themselves socialists, or at the very least leftist. But what are you doing to actually help the working class see the means of production? Yeah. Is that even in your vicinity? Because you're not working class, though. How am I supposed to think that that's going to be your concern when you're not living what people are living? And so let's just play the next clip before, we continue.
On the show talking about the Forward Party and on and on and on. And I think it can be a both and, especially as those third-party efforts are getting on the ground. And there are candidates, at least one candidate tonight, who previously ran not affiliated with the Democratic Party, who is now running as a Democrat this time, and I look forward to asking her what that decision-making is about, because I've had people on my show who said, I would love to run third party, but here are the specific barriers to entry that I experience as someone who isn't running as a Democrat. My inability to collect money through ActBlue and all these other kinds of things that are disadvantaging candidates that are already at a disadvantage because they aren't taking these corporate funds. It's a difficult question. It's something that I'm wrestling with, how much to invest personally and financially in different kind of candidates, but I don't think inaction is the best course of action, and so I hope that people are able to vet and consider what their options are via this panel tonight.
I think that's really well said. We don't have the luxury of inaction. I mean, we don't have the time to wait around and hope that there are better alternatives available. These are the pathways that are open right now where we can get some people who would participate in this conversation and have the very same viewpoints and the very same skepticism. And Juliana, I would say that
don't have the luxury of inaction from a person that has a ton of money, a multimillionaire, if not more. We don't have you have the luxury of complete inaction, of completely just trying this over and over again, unknowing that it's not going to work. You have the luxury. How dare you talk to working class people when you sit on this fucking ivory tower that you're sitting on, and you pontificate to working class people that you clearly don't talk to on a daily basis, because if you did, you would understand that they don't give a fuck about voting in progressives or somebody, that they have 3 jobs to work, or that they lost their job, or that they're not getting paid as much as they used to, or that the working conditions suck because of COVID, or that they're going to lose their job because they're not vaccinated, or whatever the case may be tomorrow. Or like it's just you're so out of touch, Crystal. And like even Brianna saying like this is better than inaction. Why does action only have to be voting for somebody? In fact, voting for somebody is the most minimal thing you could fucking do. The most minimal thing. Voting for somebody is just not at all nearly what you should be doing. It's just the littlest thing you could fucking do. What is to me an action is this is nothing. This is cosplay. This is theater. Action would be to actually form organized movements against the empire, to demand, to not stop, to organize fights against the current government, the Biden administration, to demand literally, okay, we need money. We need this. We need that at the very least. And then I'm going down to the progressive level here as to what progressives want, right? To demand something from the Biden administration. That's the very least you could do. Now, if you want to go further, you look at the movement that's going on in Canada and you say, you know what, we agree that there shouldn't be mandates, but we also, in America, we want to do no mandates, and we want to do no more expansion of the surveillance state. And we want to do, we want to do XYZ worker protections, like increase the wage or whatever. We want to do something that will give immediate tangible benefits. Oh, you want healthcare? Fine. But healthcare isn't tied to your choice about, whether you get vaccinated or not. Something like that. Something that could get people on both ends to support something like a single payer system, right? Because that's what people's emphasis is against Medicare for all. It's like, well, if the government's going to dictate if I get healthcare, then they're also going to dictate if I get vaccinated or not, right? Yeah. So like you talk to these people and you form these connections. What do you need the most? You put in money in mutual aid. You don't. That's action. Inaction is this. Inaction is just cosplaying like, I'm going to give my money to these candidates that may or may not win. But even if they do win, there's just going to be more of the same that's already there, because we've already done this and it's failed and it's failed and it's failed. And you're asking poor people to donate, poor people that don't have anything, to put their money on a dream, on a fantasy that isn't going to happen, because there is no path through electoralism right now. There is no path through electoralism.
Let me just say this much: I think it was unfair for her to say that I don't think inaction is okay. We're not talking about digressing to inaction. We're talking about a different action, okay? Because Oz said this the other day with his tweet when we brought it on the show last week with Hunter, when we were talking about this very same panel, doing the same thing over and over again, banging your head against the wall. Once again, isn't that the actual definition? When you expect different results, isn't that the actual definition of insanity? This is insane that they're going to continue to try to do this when the DNC admitted in a courtroom that they can go into the back room and pick whoever they want. You're not going to change it from the inside, just like you're not going to change the mafia from the inside. Yeah. But let me bounce something off you, fam, because I heard somebody also go, well, they're running third party. They ran third party before. Now they're running as a Democrat. And I'd like to hear a little bit about that. How about not even run third party? Don't you hear all those Bernie people came like, I'm a Bernie supporter. I'm going to support this person to run in the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders won as an independent. Let me do it like Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders won as an independent.
Yeah.
You can run as an independent.
Now, and you could. I mean, at the very least, if you want to continue, pretending that our elections are fair, run as an independent. Show people how unfair our elections are. Because I think people still don't get it. I mean, these people especially don't get it. They still think we have a fair election system. It's hard for me to even go there, Pasta, because it's like I have to like literally go down several levels now. These people still think that our election system is fair and just, and that you can elect people fairly. Oh, but third parties don't have a chance. So you're admitting that we don't have a fair election system. Otherwise, third parties would have a chance. But okay. So we don't. We have a semi-fair election system. So okay, you can't run as a third party. You run into a lot of things. They keep you out of the mainstream media. They do all these things to you. So why are you going to continue to reinforce the same system that does this? That stops people from running. Why would that system allow anything remotely plausibly as a threat to the establishment? And why would you think that? Why?
Well, here's the thing too, is sometimes when you win, you lose, and sometimes when you lose, you actually win. Yes, the election system is so fraudulent. It's so bad, the whole system itself. And I would suggest anybody, who's going to run as an independent immediately once they call the results to protest those elections in every single area to try to shine a light on it. Literally, I would ask 10 requests from everything to seeing the chain of custody of the ballot movements to the ballot images to when they were everything. But that's beside the point. I think that if you're going to run, you're not necessarily running to win, but you're running to see if you can get a debate about debate with these people, to see if you can get them on stage. I mean, Tim Canova was able to get one debate with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Shahid Buttar still hasn't found a way to get Nancy Pelosi on that stage, but you can elevate the message by running against these people as an independent and have just as much movement from other types of actions, with other actions that are non-electoral by running. So there is some benefit to run, not knowing that you're not going to win. And besides the point, even if it was a fair election, fam, it took Bernie Sanders like 3 or 4 times before he eventually won. It took Harvey Milk about 4 or 5 times before they won. You know what I'm saying? All these guys, it takes them a couple times. So for people to just cut tail and run, go, I ran third party, it doesn't work, I got to run as a Democrat. It's also a dumb idea. Not to mention, I don't even know what criteria they use when they're picking these candidates. Again, like we said, the virtue signaling isn't going to get anything done. If you're going to try to run for office, you got to represent people who don't think like you, who think differently than you. How are you going to represent them? And that's never brought to the table. All these candidates, all they do is virtue signal for the fucking progressive ideology that they like and nothing else. And that's also a problem.
And it's such a minority. You're talking to like a dozen people. You're talking to such a minority. You're not expanding your audience. No wonder. You're not expanding your audience. You're just a robot regurgitating the same exact slogans. Green New Deal, Medicare for all, blah, 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 living wage. Okay, but how are you going to get that one? And beyond that, what exactly why are you ignoring the giant elephants in the room? The COVID pandemic, foreign policy, and how that's affecting us right now. Civil
liberties, censorship.
All civil liberties, the surveillance state. I'm sorry, you guys have a panel and you invite candidates that are completely ignoring that, either on purpose because they're scared of what the progressives are going to think, or because they really don't touch on this. They're going to be voting on that way more than they are on the Green New Deal, Medicare for all. Are you kidding me? I really, and then you get mad when they don't. Like, hello, what did you expect? You guys didn't. You guys didn't hold them accountable on these issues. You don't care about foreign policy. These people don't give 2 shits about foreign policy or U.S. imperialism. Then they go online on Twitter and they're like, wow, yeah, the U.S. is an empire and we're we're clutching our pearls. I can't believe Biden is such a terrible president. But how do you, what do you expect when you don't demand better? And you put these people out to just recite slogans. Anybody can go out there and recite. So I could go out there right now and pretend to be, a milquetoast progressive candidate and recite the same slogan and get, praised by the AOCs of the world and just continue, taking people's money. I could do that. Anybody could fucking do that. But what is that going to get you? It's not going to get the working class anything. It's not going to do anything for anybody but yourselves and your ego. It's really,
and it's so crazy that they're afraid to step out of this progressive bubble, like Shahid Buttar and Jason Call and whatnot. Step out of this progressive bubble. I went and looked at that District 2 in Washington, right? And he was less than 3,000 votes away from winning the jungle primary. Lost it to the Republican who finished second place. But you only want to talk about your progressive issues and you don't want to step outside your bubble. I looked at the Republicans' webpage who finished second in the general election to the establishment Democrat, he has ending homelessness and mental illness on his page. There is cross-border, cross-partisan agreements there that you can really purge off of and get independence if you would only have the balls to step out of the progressive bubble. The balls. Yeah. How many people in Nancy Pelosi's district can't stand her? And if Shahid Buttar would go and talk about elections or talk about something that's not in the progressive bubble, he would gain votes. But they're so afraid to. They're afraid to step out of that progressive bubble. Enough is enough, gentlemen. Step out.
Have the
You'll lose some people, but you'll gain some people.
You'll gain
a
so
lot
many
more.
You'll gain so many more.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's continue because we could talk forever, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Activist movements, activism on the ground. We've been pushing the people who are in there, and we need people who are in there who understand what activism is, takes it seriously, and are willing to be pushed.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, it's the largest protest movement that's ever existed in the history of our country. And it has not been followed by one major fundamental legislative change. So a lot of these people aren't pushable. I mean, as long as you have the kind of undue influence of corporate money that you have in our Congress right now, a lot of these people who are there, particularly these people who have been there for 10, 20 years, they don't really care that much how much pressure is being placed upon them.
Okay, well, that was a quick clip. All I have to say on that clip is this has been tried. They're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and how that, you know, that took a while, and this has been tried forever. If you think about it, a lot of people are calling AOC the Nancy Pelosi of this generation, because Nancy Pelosi was talking about universal health care in the late 80s and the early 90s. She was literally, there are videos of her that we have seen of her talking about it. And here's AOC again, decades later, talking about it. And she admitted, well, we may not get universal health care till, you know, my daughter's 30. What? Are you fucking kidding me? Do you know why these people don't act? Because you continue to vote for them. You continue to put people in your party, and you continue to act like that's going to somehow destroy any sort of, empire, that it's going to be some sort of a threat. You're not threatening at all. You're actually being used as tools to continue enforcing and strengthening the current empire. That's all these people are doing.
Yeah. Let's roll to the next clip, because we could just talk about this all day long. And we did this segment so you can get your opinion out, because you didn't get the chance to do it. So let's roll the next video, and we'll see what's what.
Ready. Just one other thing I wanted to add is that I think that I'd much rather be disappointed by more progressives in power than try to act within the world in which we live right now, where there aren't that many. I feel like we've skipped a step a little bit. And even people who, not to sound like a Leninist, but even if you have that perspective, there is something that's known as a political education. And in order to even learn that electoral politics aren't the way forward, we have to go through the step of having more progressive elected. Then you can say that's
or from within.
Friends of mine who are very critical of electoralism right now, many of whom shows you probably watch, often note that they were radicalized through the Bernie 2016 or 2020 campaigns, and that they will acknowledge that they learned a lot about what to fight for and how to fight for it through those processes. So even though I have a lot of respect for people who say maybe I don't want to even give money, that's a very different thing from divesting from the process and following and getting to know these candidates. So I'm glad we're all here.
Yeah, I would definitely agree.
Fami, even if we get disappointed by the progressives, we got to still knock our head against the wall. Come on, fam.
I would rather be more disappointed by the progressives than, a corporate Democrat or Republican. Why? Why? It's the same. You're still being disappointed.
Team sports.
It's the same shit. That statement right there is the epitome of the progressive movement. This is what we're talking about when we talk about the cappuccino communists. It's about feeling better about yourself. It's not about material conditions being better. It's about you feeling better about yourself. And it's a very elitist and arrogant standpoint, because she says, the material conditions that we're living in, right? I'd rather live in the material condition. Not that she doesn't even say material conditions. She says in the actual, whatever. She says in the conditions that we're living in. She says, I like pay attention to, I'd rather live in the real world, in the reality of what's happening. But you're not living in the real world because you don't live in the working classes world where the reality is much different than somebody who doesn't have to deal with not having health care, who doesn't have to deal with not being able to pay their rent, who hasn't what you're living in a fantasy world where you think that voting more progressives in that aren't even challenging at all, that are milquetoast as fuck, that aren't talking about the fourth industrial revolution, they're not talking about medical tyranny, they're not talking about the surveillance state. They're completely in line with the status quo, with the whole agenda. They're completely in line. And you know what? And you think that that's living in reality? No, you're living in the fantasy created for you by the State Department, the mainstream media, and this global tyranny that's happening. And that's who's living in a fantasy. We're living in reality, which is why we're the way we are. Because it does stem from this place of like classism, like where you can afford. If I was well off and I didn't have to really understand what's happening here and how the poor are there's a war being waged on poor people right now. Like, sure, yeah, let's give my money to. Let me make a fun, feel good little panel about how, yay, oh my God, we all agree with each other. We're so great. We're all in complete agreement as to how we're going to vote more progressives. And yay, let's feel good about ourselves. We did our part for the poors. We tried. Look, we did. That's how it comes across. That's how it comes across. I'm so sorry, but that's how it comes across. And if you want to debate me on this, any of you, feel free. Well, because again, multiple times people have asked several of these people to have me on their shows. Guess what? They don't. Yeah. I wonder why. Yeah.
Well, we said the other day that Ben and Rania can come on the show anytime they want. I said it in a tweet yesterday. The Vanguard can come on the show anytime they want. We said the other day, right, Oz? We told Jason Call or Shahid Buttar, you want to come on the show anytime you want. You know what I'm saying?
I'd like you to get
the Sharks.
I'd like you to get. They can hear me. I would love to have you have Brianna Joy Gray and Katie Halper on because they were on a damage control podcast with Brianna Joy Gray on Sunday. They had CJ Compton J on. He killed it. He was absolutely right on electoral politics, and we need Compton J's voice, Eric and Courtney's voice out there too. It's just a shame that more of those call-ins didn't get in to support Compton J and the rest of them that were right on track on electoral politics. You guys should have been on that panel to help balance it out and back up CJ. I believe you would 100%. Thanks for letting me.
Let me say something, Oz. They're gonna have those people on because they have to, because otherwise, we can't deny Black people a voice to have to talk about these things, right? Like they have to. Like, and I'm glad that Compton J. I love Compton J. I'm glad he was on there. But again, there are things that I talk about, that Pasta talks about, that they will never allow on their shows because they're scared of that ruining their progressive fucking little bubble, their progressive cred. We can't talk about the fourth industrial revolution. We can't talk about, Klaus Schwab. We can't talk about how these mandates are literally affecting the working class, how these mandates are complete total just overreach of the surveillance state. We can't talk about these things because those things are now deemed right-wing. We can't talk about elections. We can't talk about elections because elections are now a right-wing talking point. And so they care more about how their perception is, but they're not more than what they care about actually letting people in talking about the truth. Because otherwise, like I said, they've had plenty of opportunities to reach out and they haven't done it. And of course, everybody's welcome to talk on our show. We always say that.
It's not only progressives that would avoid this show there, Oz, and everybody out there. Tulsi Gabbard won't come on the show right now. I bet you better believe that she ain't coming on this show. So she was on the show before. Open invitation. We got them all there. Open invitations. Anybody wants to go. We don't run. We don't hide.
That's your badge of honor.
Do we have any more clips?
Guys,
what's that?
That's your badge of honor. You need to keep that up. The number one reason why I'm helping Convo Couch and our sisters and brothers like Misty and Frank Franco, is because you guys are telling the truths that are unpopular, that get shit thrown at you 100% of the time, and that is your badge of honor. The day you stop doing that, I'm out of here, but I don't believe you guys are the character cut from that cloth that you would stop. You're going to go down fighting, and if we could get that from these privileged individuals that you've been talking about all day, I'd have a heart attack. It would be unbelievable. Sorry,
Please don't have a heart attack.
I had to. Well, I'm too ornery to have a heart attack. But continue. Sorry, this topic just burns me down because it's so apparent. So anyway, continue. Sorry, guys.
You know what burns my ass, Oz? A flamethrower about 3 feet tall. Anyways, do we have another clip?
Yeah.
Nobody got that joke? That was all right. Whatever.
I didn't get it. Sorry.
What burns my ass? A flamethrower 3 feet tall. Play the next clip. Jesus. I guess I got to be standing.
What does being a socialist mean to you? And how does that shape your politics? And is that something that resonates with your community?
Being a socialist to me means that you fight for working people, you fight for middle-class families, and you absolutely reject working for the corrupt ruling rich. And so really it's about power in the hands of people. I think that message is doing really well in our community. There's a lot of pundits, academics that try to say, hey, in a majority Latino district like yours, they're not progressive, they don't have all these high ideas, they're not woke. The reality is that those people are sitting behind their desk for too long in their offices. Working people want to hear a politician step up and actually address the struggles they're facing on a day-to-day basis. They want to hear somebody that's willing to fight for their access to healthcare, somebody that's willing to fight against the rich and powerful because they're fed up both with Nancy Pelosi and with Mitch McConnell. And they want to know that they're going to be able to support and be a part of something different.
Okay, so, it's not bad what he said. I mean, working people do want politicians to go and actually let's talk to them. But the problem is you have to be specific. And it's so general and so vague. And it's the same things that we have heard for years now. I literally say this for years because we've been doing this for years now. And it's the same thing we did for years. In fact, some of the candidates we interviewed before were even more specific about the things that they were wanting, right? And I forgot to touch up on a point that Bree said from before was when she said that first of all, he said access to healthcare. Stop with the access to healthcare. Like access to healthcare means to me, you're not going to fight for universal healthcare in any way, shape, or form. You're willing to combat to give in to that. But anyway, so I forgot to address this point that Bree said when she said that people got radicalized from the Bernie movement, right? That a lot of people learned what happened, like got into politics from the Bernie movement, and that's true. A lot of people, including myself, like after Bernie Sanders ran, but it wasn't just the fact that he ran and it was great and all of that. Like it was the fact that he was cheated. It was the fact, like, dude, that like they rigged it. Like that's, I don't know about you, Pasta, but that's what did it for me. I mean, the fact that you saw the empire for what it was.
Yeah. They admitted it. They admitted it in a court. They admitted it. And by the way, if you pull up Mr. Ortega's campaign page, and it just makes me laugh when he goes, I got to push back against this corrupted corporation, fascistic, leaders here, politicians and stuff. Mr. Ortega, you're running to join a party that is fascistic, corporate, and authoritarian. And if you look up your issues page, once again, it's the same thing. Housing, environment, within the environment section, Green New Deal is there, immigration rights, education, healthcare, economic prosperity. Not to say that these aren't important, because they very much are, but there's no mention of foreign policy. You're running for Congress, right? And you don't want to talk about foreign policy? Nothing about censorship, nothing about civil liberties, nothing but about medical tyranny. It's within your own bubble. It just comes off to me because there's no way. It's just saying that we got to get all these things straight, but no plan on how we're going to get them straight. How are you going to do it? It's just slogans. A big giant virtue signal. Yeah,
exactly. It's just slogans, and that's all they do. And you're not going to get any of these things unless you pay attention to the other things that we're talking about here. The surveillance state and imperialism. If you don't pay attention to that, you're not going to get these domestic issues here at all. And that's the point, because you are trying to get into this corporate party, this fascistic party, that is refusing, denying people those things while simultaneously promoting war abroad and promoting a mass increase in surveillance on the American people and on foreign nations abroad. And you're going to go into Congress and you're going to vote on legislation that you're not even going to read. And it just tells me you're going to be more of the same. Yeah. You're already telling me, but without saying anything, you're going to be more of the same. So why the hell would we waste our money on candidates like this too? On top of the fact that we shouldn't even be doing this.
Yeah.
The candidates that they're picking are just so like milquetoast. They're
it's
so
the
like
shit.
status quo.
It's the emotional left. They're going for the emotional left. Can you imagine if Al Capone, when he was put on the stand, whatnot, and they said, "Why are you part of the mafia?" And he would have said, "Well, I'm trying to change it to better for good from the inside, so I had to join." I mean, it's like you're saying.
Yeah, you're saying, you can't change the mafia from the inside. Like,
but you're going to change the Democratic Party from the inside. Get out of town.
But it's also just the fact that, look, like we did get radicalized from the Bernie movement, but because he got cheated. So we understand he got cheated. We understand that we don't have fair elections. So we're here. Why are you guys still stuck in 2016? Why are you guys still stuck there? Like, Bernie was cheated twice. And some of them won't even say that. They won't even say that in 2020 it was rigged, but it was. He was cheated twice. We studied elections. We literally went into every single, like as many precincts as we could in LA. We have proof. We studied the general election. We've talked about why people felt the way they did. We've talked about, COVID and how that has been completely just painted in a way it really isn't, how it's been misconstrued to the public. The public has been gaslit. We've talked about foreign policy ad nauseum and how that is directly our foreign policy is our domestic policy. But these people are still here not talking about those things. Yeah. And of course, we're definitely not touching the surveillance state because that is just some like right-wing libertarian bullshit.
Yeah. Klaus Schwab is just a villain on a James Bond movie, according to them. But, it'd be a good, interesting exercise for anybody out there. Take a look at the candidates that are on the Seize the House panel over here. Go do their Twitters and see what they're saying about Ukraine and Russia. Go ahead and report back to us. Let me know. I guarantee you're going to see diddly squat. They might not even address it. You know what I'm saying? And you literally have some of these candidates there that will tell you, well, I don't pay attention to foreign policy, fam, because right now we need to handle our own problems at home first. Then we can worry about what we do abroad.
You should be nowhere near Congress. Nowhere near. Stay
nowhere near
away from Congress then.
Yes.
Because we already have enough idiots that don't pay attention to foreign policy, like 95% of our Congress. No, I'm sorry, more. Like 98%. So please.
Go away. Do we have another clip? Oh, we clipped out. We got one more. Here we go.
Really made moves on is trying to protect the profits of Big Pharma. So we're calling them out and we're challenging them on that record. And when people in this district hear about that record, they're ready to move on.
Great.
Let's go look at his right now. Let's go look at Mike Ortega. Is that his name? Look at his Twitter right now. I'm going to go see right now. Is he talking about Big Pharma? He mentioned Big Pharma. Did he mention Big Pharma only to use it against his opponent, or has he really called out Big Pharma for what they've been doing? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, just go. And if you go there right now, if you follow him, you have a chance to be his 1,000th follower. And tell me if it says anything about Big Pharma. Oh, there's a picture of him and Nina Turner. That makes me feel good, right? There's more of that. I don't see anything. I got to go through it, but fam, nothing's jumping off the page. Pramila, the same stuff. I don't see anything Russian.
Yeah. So, okay.
Nothing.
So this is where I go back to these people think, and this is what Katie said, it's better to be let down by progressives than others. So it's better to be let down by the people that you shouldn't be letting you down. Like, I'm sorry. I think it's worse. Isn't it worse to be let down by people that working people voted in with their money that or supposedly voted in, that working people, did all this work to try to get in somehow in this fucking chaotic, unfair electoral system. Perhaps they were let in for that specific reason because they're not going to be a threat to the establishment. But okay, let's say that, for the sake of this argument that they were let, like the people these people were voted in, and so these progressives, and you put in all this work and effort to get them in, and then they let you down. It's better to be let down by them than by a Republican who you didn't expect anything from, than by a corporate Democrat that you didn't expect anything from. Why is it better? It's worse because you're putting all your faith and your work and your emphasis on these people, and they're not doing anything. And all of these candidates are telling me they're just going to be more of the same. They're going to join the club, join the squad. The squad is a club, and we ain't in it. And that's the reality. These people still think Democrats and progressives are better than Republicans. Guess what? You're being duped by an illusion. There is no difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. At the end of the day, there is no difference. The difference is that they portray our cultural war bullshit. They go on and they spew and they talk about Roe v. Wade. The Republicans come out and try to take it away, and the Democrats come in and try to save it, even though the Democrats could have protected it long ago, but they didn't because they know that they can fundraise off of it. So this is the game they play, and you all fall for it. And you all still think that Democrats are better. It's at the core. This is what we were addressing yesterday with the dissenter pod. These leftists think that the Democratic Party is better at some point, that it's not as fascistic at all. They don't even call it fascist. That it's still okay. You're talking to me that the Joe Biden party, the party of Joseph Biden, the 1994 author of the crime bill, who literally worked with Strom Thurmond, who a fucking racist. Like, you're telling me that guy, that party,
Bam, we're gonna move him left,
is not a fascistic party, is not equitably as fascistic as the Republican, just because the Republicans tell you outright how they feel versus the Democrats. I mean, you're still there. You haven't really moved. You say you have, but no, you still put them on you elevate them a little higher, and that's what it comes down to. We don't. So for me, you might as well be having, a lot of people are mad because Tulsi Gabbard's going to speak at a Republican conference. So it's okay for AOC to speak at a Democratic conference. It's okay for to me, they're the same. I don't give a shit. They're still politicians. They're all going to speak for whatever gets them whatever political means they need. But at the end of the day, it's a two-party illusion, because you live in an oligarchy where we don't have a fair election system, where the surveillance state is expanding, where we're jailing journalists like Julian Assange for exposing U.S. war crimes, where we're censoring people, where we're smearing people for going against the ridiculous COVID narrative that is crumbling before our eyes. That's the reality that we're living in. That's the real world that people are living in right now, where they're being ostracized by their family members because they're not vaccinated, where they're being segregated from certain spaces because they decided not to take an injection. Because for what that we're in an era where we have the left cheering for war with Russia, because some idiot like Kai Kalinsky told them, "Hey, Putin is invading Ukraine." Like this is the reality we're living in, and where people aren't even paying attention to that. They're tuning out because they feel like there's no way to change this, that politicians aren't going to change their life, that no matter who's in power. And homeless people have told us this, people who are unhoused, people that we talk to, because we do go out in the streets and we do cover things on the ground, which I haven't seen any of these people do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm glad you're going off. I was listening the whole time, but I just got to say something like, I went on Mike Ortega, is that his name, for Congress? Nothing whatsoever on foreign policy, nothing whatsoever on nothing about foreign policy on his webpage. Went to his Twitter, nothing about Russia and Ukraine. I got to give it up to Amani Oakley. Wasn't crazy about her webpage when I originally saw it, but at least she made a comment talking about neo-Nazis in the Ukraine, is paying attention to it. So, I mean, for the most part, though, they're just usually void of talking about anything foreign policy whatsoever, because it's not a popular subject whatsoever. But, I always ask, candidates too, as well, when I see them in the streets or I talk to them, well, how are you going to pay for things? You know that the biggest budget, the most of the money we spent is on the Pentagon budget. So if you address the fact that we also, these useless wars, these endless regime change wars that we spend all this money on, can be used for every single social program at home, maybe that would be a good avenue to talk about those things. That's what I tell them.
Learn MMT.
Go ahead. What'd you say?
I said learn MMT because that's what they're going to tell you.
Oh, God. Stop it.
But, okay. So, by the way, I have to point out Rebecca Parsons, I think she ran as an independent before or something, or is it Green? One of those two. We interviewed her and Jason Call years ago. And they, you know, Rebecca was one of the better candidates, and she still sounded a little bit better than everybody else. But again, they're not talking about all these other things that we're talking about. Not at all. They're not touching on them because, I mean, there's a certain, you know, label that you get painted once you start talking about these things. But fuck those labels. You guys have to break through this. This is not the same climate as 2016, as 2017, This is not the same climate. We're in a different climate right now. Move on, change your tactics. If it's not working, change your tactics, change your strategy. Because at the end of the day, the people aren't with you right now. I talk to people all the time outside of politics, people who are not political. And literally, we all agree that there are problems. We talk about the COVID, we talk about what's happening with the inflation, we talk about what's happening in the economy, and they all agree that everything is shit right now. So why don't you talk to those people? Why don't you make these connections with these people? It's really not that hard. And like at the end of the day, that is what has to be done in order to have any sort of movement. You can't just label people who aren't left enough for you, or who you know don't read theory. And this whole thing, like where you have to have a political education. These people don't have time to have a political education right now, Katie, because they're fucking poor and they have other things on their mind, like paying their rent and getting their kids medication,
putting food on the table,
or not being able. Where are they going to take their kids if their kid has to stay at home more, or if their kid has to go to school, and what they're missing, and the trauma that's undergoing for kids because of the lockdowns and because of the mask and all this stuff. Like all of these things that are upon American families, none of that is being addressed. None of that. It's like that doesn't exist.
Touch.
So
out of touch. Do we have any more clips? Are we clipped out? We are clipped out. Fam, the other subject I have, the other topic, we'll just roll it tomorrow or the next day. We'll figure it out because we're on 2 hours and 20 minutes on a pick-up show. Margaret, thank you so much for the Super 8 contribution. As always appreciated on the couch. Andrew D'Amico. Sorry, not Andrea. Andrew D'Amico. The ruling class succeeds in creating the totalitarian surveillance state that aggressively is pushing for war. I'm sorry. I gotta pull it up. If the ruling class succeeds in creating the totalitarian surveillance state that they're aggressively pushing for, we won't have the luxury of debating policies like Medicare for all or a Green New Deal or progressive reforms in general. All of these issues seem like arranging the deck of chairs on the Titanic.
Exactly.
Wow, Andrew. I'm glad I took the time to read it properly.
Thank God, fam.
Convo Couch on point. This is from ARAM. Thank you so much, ARAM. That's a beautiful, lovely tip. We appreciate it. It means so much to us over here. Thank you so much. And it means to us if you just like, share, and follow. That's great in itself. Convo Couch on point and on fire. The strength of the neoliberal left is not standing up to the Republicans for the neocon agenda. Democrat opposition is simply distractive virtue signaling or performative kabuki theater. The strength of the neoliberal left is not standing up to the Republicans or the neocon agenda, but staunchly standing against the principled left.
Yep.
Rocky D, what's up, Rocky D? Thanks for Impasta. Being working class totally gives one of the different perspectives and different priorities. We prioritize the basics of life and are surrounded by people with work who have a wide spectrum of points of view. Thank you for being valuable, challenging voices for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fam, I'm out of breath and I'm out of tired. I'm a little tired over here. I did a show this morning, did another show with Mark, did a show with you. We're ready to, we're rocking and rolling. That's it for today. Thank you for everybody who jumped on and left all these beautiful super rays. It meant a lot to us. We had over 130 people at one time over here. We had over 300 people for the majority of the show on YouTube. This is the second show in a row, fam, what we went to, we stayed on YouTube the whole time. So that tells me the next show, we're going to have to dip out to Rokfin only and talk about some stuff that's that can get us in trouble. Because I have some stuff with you getting ready. So
yeah, there's a lot more smears on ivermectin. Again. Yeah.
Anyways, believe it or not, fans,
Horse paste.
there was nothing. There was no mention of horse paste on any of those candidates running in the Seize the House poll. Sorry to tell you guys. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for everybody who joined in today. Another long show. We'll be back tomorrow. We got a few things going on, but for Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Oz, not with the overalls today. It's a little disappointing. I would like to see the overalls.
Convo out.
We love you guys.
Fuck.